period of adjustment, disruption. Not everything goes smoothly from the outset. No, we're not just talking about the launch of the Will Cain Show. We're talking about the first 2 months of the presidency of Donald Trump. 2, Democrats seem to think their new strategy should be cussing, swearing, cursing like a sailor. That and more with Outkick's Bobby Burack. 3, the Warren Buffett of NFL free agency, finding value, looking for the dollar store aisle in the middle of this Neiman Marcus spending spree that is NFL free agency. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Always on demand by subscribing at Apple or on Spotify. You can join us here live as a member of the Militia by subscribing at YouTube, setting a reminder, and hanging out with us every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. Drop into the comment section and become a part of the show. In fact, several of you are going to become part of the show today. We've been getting your feedback on the Will Cain Show. We've been getting your feedback on the things that you like and the things that you have some nice constructive criticism on how we can be better. We're going to go through that, acknowledging that not everything jumping out of the gates is rose petals and honeymoons. In fact, that's what we're seeing probably with the first 2 months of the presidency of Donald Trump. Let's get into that with story number 1. There are increasing fears that the American economy is headed towards a recession. Markets on a day-to-day basis seem to swing by anywhere from 1 to 3 percentage points, 500 on the S&P 500, on the Dow Jones, up and down every day. Concerns over tariffs. What will tariffs mean not only for the stock market, but for inflation? What will it mean for the price of eggs? Tariffs probably won't mean much for the price of eggs. It is, beyond a political talking point, important to understand that the price of eggs are a reflection of the fact that something like 100 million chickens were killed, egg-laying chickens killed during the presidency of Joe Biden. This to combat avian flu. That's why the price of chicken today, chicken meat, is stable. It's fine. It's because your broilers didn't get slaughtered by the hundreds of millions. They're still there, supply ready, inflation low. But the hens, the egg layers, they're the ones that got slaughtered to the hundreds of millions, spiking the price of eggs. Still, markets don't know what to make of 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada. They don't know what to make of across-the-board tariffs on China. And that means that we are probably headed, and it's been acknowledged by Donald Trump, with a real threat for a recession. Anytime you cut government spending in the short term, you're also probably going to see some recessionary effects. People hitting the unemployment line. The question is whether or not all of this is better for the long term. When I was first starting out on my entrepreneurial career, I had a mentor that said to me, your job as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, is to fly your airplane by instruments. You can only see so much looking out the windshield. You have to look at all of the instruments to keep the plane not only at the right altitude, at the right speed, but that your nose is pointed in the right direction. So your job becomes somebody that constantly monitors the instruments. We have to look at the long term. What are the effects of all these economic policies? Does it keep our nose pointed in the right direction? That's also the question I ask myself daily when it comes to the Will Cain Show. Not unlike the first 2 months of the presidency of Donald Trump, we can't expect everything to go perfectly. My job is to measure the instruments, and I've got some dials. I've got some feedback from you. So let's bring the boys in New York. Let's bring in the Willisha. Tinfoil Pat, Two-A-Days Dan, and Young Establishment James. Over the first 2 months of the launch of the Will Cain Show, which happens to coincide with the presidency of Donald Trump, we've gotten a lot of feedback. So at this point, we feel like we can read the instruments. They're not bouncing hard across the dial. We can get some things, I think, that we might be able to take some lessons from. So one of the things we thought we might do today is reflect on the criticism, the constructive criticism, or the feedback from you, the Willisha. So Tinfoil Pat has collected a sampling of comments over the last couple of months. Tell us exactly what they have, the thoughts on the Will Cain Show. What do you have, Tinfoil?
We are going to go with the first one the communist red star in your background of your TV show. This is the one I've probably seen the most criticism of. And this email is from Al Gramando, and he says, I'm a retired U.S. Army CW-03 Huey aircraft commander, 2 tours in Vietnam. Please remove those communist red stars from your background banner. Thank you. I love Fox.
Boom.
I want to start with this, by the way. I was talking to a friend of mine this past week, and he heard me say this last week. I don't know what it is about human psychology, but you will focus. And I think everyone listening at home and everyone here today on the Will Cain Show will acknowledge you listen to negativity. I don't know what it is about human psychology. I will scroll past 10 positive comments to stop on the one negative comment. I don't remember as well the 10 positive comments as much as I think about the one piece of negativity. And by the way, I don't consider someone who writes in, like I believe it was the Lieutenant Colonel, to just be negative. Some of this I consider to be constructive criticism that I think about. But I do think it's interesting why we do that. Why do we do that? Why do we focus? 80% of the comments and 80% of the feedback we've received on the launch of the Will Cain Show has been overwhelmingly, all caps, positive. But I'm not doing this today just for comedic effect. I do look at some, and I think there are lessons to take. I actually listen to the viewers. I listen to the Willisha. Scott King, who's with me here today, I'm doing the show from the Dallas Bureau, which is, by the way, the current home studio of the Will Cain Show on Fox. I had to do it from here today because we have a pre-tape interview with a Facebook whistleblower on the China plans of Mark Zuckerberg coming up directly after this show, which will air, by the way, on Fox. But Scott King, who runs tech stuff here for the Will Cain Show on Fox, can do this. Let's switch out our background, Scott, if we might. Let's switch out our background to the TV background.
Wow.
So we can see what's going on there. There you go. There's the television Will Cain Show background.
Wow.
So, tinfoil, I've seen the comment as well. So there is a scroll that has the name of the show, and every time it's repeated, it is separated by a red star.
Commie.
And there's a lot of comments on this. Yes, that maybe I'm a secret hidden Chinese communist. That is not what this red star separating my name happens to be. It's not a subliminal admission that what you're actually watching is Chinese propaganda. Let's go CCP. I don't know. I don't have much to say about this because I didn't really select much of the graphics. I didn't select much of the design. I'm not offended by it. I don't see it. I don't. Every time I see a red star, I don't think of China.
Should we change it?
Well, that's the thing. Like, is this constructive criticism or is this?
That's nitpicky.
That's
nitpicky.
Nitpicky.
Would it hurt? I'm team change it. I say, hey, they pointed something out. Let's really bring them in and
the red's good for
let
the
them
color
have a say.
scheme. The red's good for the color scheme. I like it. Red,
Well, Dan's
yellow, blue.
the Brooklyn Brunch crew here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Dan's our hidden communist subliminal spy.
Wow.
I have received comment, I don't know if you have this tinfoil, that in general, the fonting of the show reminds people of a circus. I get that a lot. Like, hey, not just the red star, but the yellow, swirly, scribbly font of Will Cain Show looks like a big top tent circus. What's up, two-a-days?
I had someone just now, actually. We started the show in the live chat on YouTube. DH says, I don't like your graphics in your name. It looks like you're a comedy show and not a serious show.
I've seen that before. I've seen that comment, that it is not worthy of the seriousness of the program. You know, let's talk about that. In tinfoil, I want you to signal me that you have a comment that illustrates this stuff if I start getting into something that you have another user who has suggested. But the long-term vision of this show, right, the nose pointed of the airplane is headed towards an increased casual and conversational nature. It is less button-down Walter Cronkite, more conversational, deep dive, what we hope is educational and entertaining trip through the news. So I think the logo and the look and everything is headed towards that more casual nature. So it doesn't bother me at all. I'm looking at you guys right now. Like, I like the logo behind you up there in the control room in New York City. I like the way that looks.
That's great.
And I think it fits the tone of the show of where we're headed eventually. Casual. What else do you have, Tinfoil?
So I don't have anything on the font. And I've seen a lot of comments about the scroll in the back, but I don't have anything on that. But we also get a lot of complaints about, like this one from Jay Winkler. Can you please change the background to your screen? It does not look professional. Just looks like a Google shot of a neighborhood. It's hard to focus on you with so many different buildings behind you.
Google
Just have
Earth.
one large image, like Jesse Waters and others. The
For info only.
For
Well,
info only. Just trying to make your show look better. So it's constructive
Thank you.
criticism.
We got the pros in here.
I love that.
For info only. I like that. All right, that's one we need to address. That's been a consistent piece of feedback. The background behind me. Everyone has an opinion on the background behind me. Okay, so this is not the original image that we launched the show with. This is what looks to me like a small town in Texas, Oklahoma, or someplace like that. It's sort of dusk. The sky is purplish orange. I actually really dig it. Like, I like this look. I actually like the one we have for the Will Cain Show, our digital show at 12 as well. I like both. I like this. This reminds me of the town where I grew up. Now, I will say I pushed for this change, for this one. Because the original image we had was more like a bucolic, green, small town with what looked like a little bit neo-colonial downtown buildings. And what the problem for me was, here's what we're doing. Here's the main thing, like my guiding light: authenticity. Am I being real? I'm not pretending to be Walter Cronkite, so I don't want to sound like Walter Cronkite. I'm not pretending to be the voice of God, so I don't want to sound like the voice of God. I want to have everything coherent and authentic to who I am, to establish a relationship of honesty with the audience. And yet here I am introduced into the show. I say, welcome to the Heartland, which is not Texas. Texas is not in the Heartland. And then we come to you from Texas with a shot of bucolic small town Maryland. None of that
Maryland?
made sense.
It's Maryland.
That's not the Heartland? Maryland?
That was the original shot, that neo-colonial, nice little small town with green hills. That was Maryland, as it turns out. It's what I was told. This is actually Texas. This one now is Texas. But here's what I want to say about all this. Okay, I've seen your feedback. I get your thoughts. I even got it from Stephen A. Smith. Like, when he was on the show, first thing he texted me was, hey, jazz up that background. Here's what I would say. Even with the scroll, to your point, Patrick, a lot of people don't like the scroll behind. Hang in there. Like, I don't know, and I'm hesitant to say, because we have an ongoing debate here in the Dallas Bureau of when this is going to be. We are building a studio for the Will Cain Show. When will that be done? Okay? Scott, my guy in Dallas, put his
Scott's the
over-under
best.
at May 1st.
May 1st, okay.
He says May 1st. Everybody back in New York says April. So beginning of April.
We trust
But
God.
I mean, it's already mid-March. So when will that studio be done? I don't know. When it is done, all of this is probably out the window. Probably. Like, I don't know if this image will come back with us. I don't know what will be here, but the show will have a vastly different look. I'm going to have a full-on set with a table, wide shots, 5 cameras, guests in studio. I'm going to have the freedom to get up, move around, walk. I'm going to have video monitors on a wall that I can interact with and lay out what I want to lay out. You guys know how I like to visually illustrate the depth of issues or what we need to understand. Maps, PowerPoints, slides, whatever. It's going to be vastly different, so hang in there. Everything about this and the way this show looks is about to change. What's up, Tinfoil?
Well, Paul Rayfield does not have an issue with anything visually, but his criticism is, I like your show, but whatever you keep glancing down to read needs to be moved up to look more natural.
The phone.
I don't know what that is about.
About the
I glance
show?
down a lot. I mean, there's
So-
that could be. I look at my phone. I look at my phone because I get bored of the show and I want to like just scroll.
Yeah, not really interested.
That's what people think.
Yeah, yeah.
I look at my phone because the guys communicate with me via text on various things that are coming up during the show. I had to get on Young Establishment James for continuing to just chit-chat on the text during the show because I need only pertinent information during the show.
I'm sorry, Coach.
Because I'm looking at my text from time to time to see if you guys want to tell me something about what's coming up or what's available or if we're having technical troubles. I have my iPad that I use for research that I read from time to time. I have a notepad that I write things down on. And then I have a return up here, which my sight line is below the camera. That I like right now, I'm looking at you guys below the camera line. It could be any of those things. And to, I forget his name, Rex, Paul, Ryan, Rick.
Paul.
I got one of them was in there. I got the right one somewhere in that
Paul
list.
Rayfield. So it was close, very close.
I can't. I'm sorry, Paul. I'm gonna look where I want to look.
And stop
Back
nodding.
to the whole idea of being
What the hell?
authentic. Oh yeah, that's a consistent one. Stop nodding when people are talking.
That's the dumbest
Yes,
one.
I've tried.
Have you done that your
that
whole
one
life?
bangs around in my head. That one bangs around in my head. Like when I'm interviewing somebody, I'm going, "Are you nodding a lot? What are you doing?"
Have you done that your whole life?
Do you, James? Do you nod when people talk to you?
If I'm interested.
I do a random, like, kind of once.
No. Do you? The reason I asked that, do you
I
think
don't
you
know.
know?
No, no.
Do you
idea.
know?
No idea.
That's right.
Maybe.
And so did I do it my whole life?
Maybe.
I don't know. It's not until you're on TV.
Let's roll the
everybody
life
points
tape.
out
Oh my gosh.
exactly every little thing about you. Do you become aware that you might be a nodder?
Can we ask like your siblings, your mom? We'll see.
Go ahead, tinfoil.
All right, we got some that are more about the content of the show. For example, when you had an astronaut on last week, astronaut Vert, someone said, "I enjoy your show, Marianne. I was totally disgusted with Terry Vert's implying Elon Musk's free labor trying to get rid of our government's waste is corrupt because he is involved in the space industry. Keep him off your show or have him back and read him the Riot Act. Musk stepped up and is helping our country with no expectation of compensation. What has Vert done?" I'm assuming he went to space at some point, but
So this was an interesting moment last week. Terry Virts was an astronaut who was stranded in space for about a month, and he came on to talk about the astronauts had been stranded up in space for 9 months. Those astronauts got openly political in saying that Joe Biden had left them in space, and they were appreciative of Donald Trump and Elon Musk working to bring them back from space. I didn't know when he was booked and put on the show that he would actually be the one that wanted to get political, accusing Elon Musk of corruption. Also, by the way, I didn't know that he was a rabid anti-Trumper. What I'm here to tell you is that would not have stopped me from putting him on the show. People need to know that because I did see some feedback. Like, I've really liked your show. This is a single comment, but I'm done watching if you're going to put on a guy like Terry Virts. Well, I'm going to have to get ready to disappoint you because I'm going to put on a lot of people who I don't like or disagree with. And I mean it. I will put on people I literally do not like who they are as a person. If I think there is an interesting conversation that advances understanding or entertainment for the audience, I will put on people who disagree. As for Terry Virts, I didn't see that coming. I think I handled it okay. I pushed back on him, and we had that, honestly, a debate in the final moments of the show before we had to hard out to the 5. But I would prefer to know it was going to happen that way, not because I need more prep time, just because it's like, whoa, okay, we're doing this. I thought we were just talking about space. But I'm okay with it. I'm okay with getting punched in the nose, and I will punch back in the nose. Go ahead, tinfoil.
all right. Probably last one. Lots of Canada comments people did not enjoy your taking on of Canada during the four nation face-off back in the day. And some people were giving friendly notes, like Barry L. Canadians are proud people as are Americans. We need to work together and be strong and united. And that's one of the nicer comments.
So
some people said,
they're saying stop crapping on Canada.
Stop crapping on Canada.
Essentially.
They're our friends.
Yeah, I know that there's. I didn't know. I know now. There's a lot of people that watch from Canada, and a lot of people messaged in, "Hey, we're not all crazy lefties, and you need to give us a little bit of slack because the ones that are basically beholden to a media class that is nothing short of propaganda and monolithic in Canada." That being said, look, left, right, Aggie, Eagle, Canadian, I'm going to make fun of you because I am Cowboys, Longhorns, American. And that's the nature of our relationship.
Wow.
So if you can't take it, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Boom.
We're all going to have fun here, Aggies. We're all going to have fun here, Canadians. Over here, I guess, we're having fun in America. All right, let's get into why Democrats think their newest tactic should be cussing. Swearing, cursing. Which do you call it? I say cussing. That's how they plan to take on Republicans. That and more with Outkick's Bobby Burack when we come back on The Will Cain Show. Dude, we don't need entertainment. We would like to have facts, says Raw T on YouTube. I think it's a comment regarding my suggestion the show will be entertaining and in-depth and smart. And Raw T says, I don't need entertaining, I just need facts. Here's what I have to say, Raw T. I don't believe you. All of this is making entertainment. We're doing it with news and facts, but you're going to turn the channel if you're not entertained by that information. It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Joining me now, the columnist at outkick.com, Bobby Burack. What's up, Bobby?
What's up, Will? How are you?
I'm good. You had a piece of reporting last week that went pretty far and wide. You had people covering your conversation with Baltimore Ravens kicker Justin Tucker, who has been accused, I don't know by how many, you'll fill us in, how many different masseuses for acting inappropriately, sexual harassment, in the same vein, but not the same type of accusations as Deshaun Watson, but this time Justin Tucker of the Baltimore Ravens. You spoke to Tucker, and everybody picked that up, and they've talked about that interview and that piece ever since.
Yeah, and I appreciate this shout out. So since January, 16 different female massage therapists have accused Justin Tucker of sexual misconduct or bad behavior, inappropriate behavior. And what was interesting about this story is when the allegations first came out, we kept hearing from the anonymous accusers and their lawyer. They all have the same lawyer, as far as I know, a guy by the name of Michael Belsky. But nobody had heard from Justin Tucker or his side or his wife or any of the people involved. And there are actually a lot of outlets that criticized Justin Tucker for coming to me, coming to Outkick, and what they would say going right wing. But it wasn't that at all. In fact, after 4 weeks of coverage, Will, we are the only outlet that tried to get in touch with Justin, which is what I found so illuminating over this process. Is if you're a CBS Sports, NBC Sports, the local Baltimore papers, how do you report on this issue without ever trying to get in touch with the subject who you are reporting is a pervert, a sexual deviant? I thought that was a very awful look for journalism. And when I finally spoke to him, he was very forthcoming, and he made very clear he was just appreciative that we were willing to hear his side. And we didn't just report his side. We reached out to the lawyer of the accusers, the salons. We tried to put all of the information in there. And no surprise, the story that was being told was not the full story or even close to it.
So, whenever one of these things comes up, whether or not it's Deshaun Watson, and I'm going to put this in a different category than, for example, the punt god, Matt Ariza, who at San Diego State was accused of date rape, or I think it was actually an accusation of gang rape at a college party. And it totally tanked his ability to make a living professionally. He went undrafted. He was a really good punter. He sat out for a year or two. He is now, I believe he's still the punter for the Buffalo Bills. Is that right? I think he's still
Chiefs.
with the Buffalo Bills. He's with the Kansas City Chiefs. Was it the Bills that drafted him originally?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then cut him. And they cut him because of these accusations. My point is, that's a singular incident that deserves immediate fact check and due diligence and due process. When you got a guy like Justin Tucker or Deshaun Watson, and the only commonality I want to draw, well, there's two. It's the masseuse angle, but also the number of accusations, Bobby. Should we not sit here at some point and go, where there's smoke, there's fire? Like, if you have 16 different accusers, that carries a little bit more weight than a single incident that deserves the facts being totally scrutinized.
Yeah, a lot of people have asked me this. I don't agree with that, or my answer to that would be no, and here's why. We tend to look at a number and say, well, how could 16 different women lie about this? And I understand that from afar, but there's some context here. Oftentimes what happens is when there is a single accusation against a public figure, a high-priced attorney offers to rep that accuser, then starts to anonymously reach out to anyone who has ever had an experience with the subject. In this case, the lawyer is reaching out to anyone who's ever performed a massage on Justin Tucker, promising to keep them anonymous. And while, again, you might say, well, that's not really cause for them to lie. Well, if you read my story, we pretty much were able to prove that at least one of the accusers was lying, or at least not being forthcoming. I mean, she claims that she reported Justin for really egregious behavior, never wanted him to come back, and then we obtained an email from years later, her saying how great of a customer he was and sending him a private email to come back. So I don't look at the number of accusers and say, well, this indicates guilt or there's smoke here. I really do try to look at every case individually. Now, look, I don't know that Justin is innocent or guilty. I don't know. Obviously, I was not there, but I can tell you from the evidence that we have right now that I was able to obtain that has been reported, there is nothing even close that indicates guilt, and there is a lot of suspicious behavior from the people accusing him.
All right, going back to you getting this story, it's interesting. Justin Tucker is accused of going right-wing because he's gone to Outkick.
Right.
And there's two interesting factors in this, and neither has to do with politics. One, you laid out for us. No one else tried to talk to Justin Tucker. No one else reached out to him. Not local, not national, not left, not right. No one else was interested in hearing the story of the accused. You were, and you reached out to Justin Tucker. Secondarily, you had built up individually, and perhaps Outkick as an institution, a level of credibility and trust with Justin Tucker, that he decided that you were the person for him to share that story with. Now, I don't think, my suspicion would be, that doesn't have much to do with politics, but rather some way he's become familiar with your work. And I would suggest those people that are like, oh, you've gone right-wing, Justin Tucker, should probably take some look at their own work and why he wouldn't choose you as a credible person to trust in sharing his side of the story.
Yeah, I mean, the whole right-wing narrative here is not surprising, but there was nothing in that piece that was political. And in fact, there was not an angle. When I had first received information on this story, to give a little background, I think probably like you just said, I was suspicious because, okay, 16 women, is he trying to use us? And initially, I didn't know that there was much of a story here other than, okay, let's see what he tells us on the record. But the more I dug into it and obtained tax records, documents, receipts, there was obviously a story here. And I called the other side, the lawyer of the accusers, and was very open to them. And if you have any contradictory evidence and you can provide it to me and I can verify it, I'll put it in this story. This story was not at all a defense of Tucker as much as here's what we know, here's what both sides are saying. And the other side, they provided me a quick little quote on the record saying, we don't represent the spas. You'll have to discuss this matter with them. Well, several of the massage places that he was accused of misbehavior at are closed. One of the places actually provided a sworn declaration saying that they were unaware of any of these accusations. And a couple of other salon owners have gone on the record saying they were never told of any of these complaints. So that doesn't seem like a very strong response from the side of the accusers, which makes me think, how can these other reporters be so sure that Justin Tucker is guilty when I would argue my reporting provided more details than anyone's? Like I see Jason Locke and Fora calling for Justin Tucker to be released. Bomani Jones said the Ravens ought to cut him immediately. How can they call for this guy's job without knowing what happened? And moreover, how can they have made those statements before ever hearing from Justin himself? Because they made those statements, Will, before I put out my report 2 weeks ago.
That is fascinating. And it's fascinating how many times we've been down this road. And there's no lessons to be learned on this road. How many times we've been down this road where people call for others' jobs based upon accusations that are not even at this point leveled as charges, and find that of enough weight and heft to get someone fired, only for later to find out the accusations of whatever the accused person may be are not credible, that totally fall apart. And the news cycle has moved on. And we've totally moved on. You got somebody fired. The reasons you got them fired have now been totally gone. And now you've moved on to the next.
Yeah, I think a case that comes to mind is Trevor Bauer. There was a woman who accused him of, I don't even know, sexual misbehavior. And The Athletic, a New York Times publication, just roasted him, called on Major League Baseball to suspend him, the Dodgers to cut him, and he eventually was either suspended or released. I don't have the details in front of me now. And we find out 2 years later, via text messages, he was set up. The female accuser told her friends, hey, I found my next victim. I'm going to take him for the bag. And I'm paraphrasing slightly, but she admitted that when she first met Bauer, she was going to hook up with him and accuse him of very egregious sexual misconduct to extort him and get money out of it. So this is a man who lost his baseball career, lost his prime years that he'll never get back, and those very same pundits and reporters and columnists are doing the exact same thing to Justin Tucker without a shred of evidence that he's guilty. Look, I'll be the first one to say, if we find out Tucker did this, I don't know how we could, but maybe if we do, I will be the first one not only to criticize him publicly, but to call him privately and say, hey, man, you lied to me. I was on the phone with you. I talked to your wife. You guys were adamant that this is all 100% false. So I'm not taking sides here. But for anyone to be using a public platform to say that Justin Tucker should be cut, that his marriage should be over, not only is that irresponsible, it's reckless, and it's the exact reason why an outlet like ours, Outkick, was able to get this story over a much bigger outlet like USA Today, New York Times, because those outlets are not worried about the truth. They're worried about smearing this guy.
In service of virtue signaling, to show that they're against sexual harassment. In this case, Justin Tucker is accused of exposing himself, I think trying to guide masseuse's hands towards a happy ending and pleasuring himself once that fails or succeeds on the massage table. So those are the accusations, and everyone feels the need to somehow signal that they are opposed to these things, because there's a whole nother contingent of society out there that's actually pro-sexual harassment is the implication. I always used to laugh about that at ESPN. The people that make their brand on getting on top of the table to go, I am opposed to domestic violence. Whoa! Heavy take, man, to start my morning show off with. Should we get the other side on here? Is there a pro-domestic violence voice at ESPN? I'm unfamiliar. Is there another side to this? Because you've really climbed to the mountain of top hot take with that one. You are opposed to domestic violence.
Yeah, I saw a former Deadspin writer, go on Blue Sky and was very critical of me, saying, nowhere in this piece does Burack say that he condones this behavior or that he has sympathy for the victims. Why would I need to say that, Will? If I'm covering true crime and somebody's accused of murder, I don't think I'd waste paragraphs saying, just so you guys know, if he actually murdered someone, that's not behavior that I promote or accept. I mean, it's just so pathetic.
Can you imagine, like on HLN or whatever channels are now doing true crime, Dateline, NBC, if they have to do a disclaimer at the beginning of every investigation, Dateline does not condone murder. Cool.
Right.
I'm glad we
If
started
this guy
with that.
actually, raped someone, just so you know, Dateline, we don't like rapists here. We're against rapists. So for anybody who needs to know, yes.
And if you think about some of these personalities, like the ones you rattled off earlier, that's actually all they're contributing to the conversation.
Of course.
They're not doing the now. So if Dateline's doing a 60-minute program, but they feel the need at the beginning of the first 2 minutes to just lay out for you that they are opposed to domestic violence or murder, but then they spend the next 48 going into the details of the case, all the ones you just rattled off, all Jason LaConfort is doing is the first thing. He's just going, domestic violence is bad and you should fire anyone accused of it. He's not doing anything after that. He's not looking into it. He's not sharing facts. He is simply doing the, hey, we think murder is bad thing.
Yeah, and then there's a whole race angle to this. I see, and I've gotten emails and tweets from other people in the media. Well, if he were a black guy, you would be calling for his job. No, he wouldn't. People say, well, Deshaun Watson was crucified much harder in the press. Well, let's back up. One, Deshaun Watson was at the time a star quarterback. Justin Tucker's a kicker. Two, Deshaun Watson was accused of criminal behavior and eventually settled with 22 women. Justin Tucker actually provided concrete evidence that he's innocent. I've said before, if Deshaun Watson or his lawyer contact me and have documents, emails, and sworn declarations proving that they're innocent, I'll be happy to put those up on our site. So the race angle too, predictable, pathetic, but par for the course.
Let's move to Democrats, Bobby. I want to talk about what their newest trend seems to be, which is, I think, in pursuit of this sense of authenticity, cussing. So here is a sampling of Democrats and their new messaging.
Somebody slap me and wake me the up, because I'm ready to get on with it.
If you could speak directly to Elon Musk, what would you say?
Off.
Elon Musk. Elon Musk and his hackers don't know about what it means to run a housing program.
To think that Elon Musk or Donald Trump give a about our public schools.
Trump! I don't swear in public very well, but we have to Trump!
All right, that's from the podium. The vast majority of those are from the podium at rallies. Okay, I really thought about this, Bobby, like what's going on here? And I think there's a lot going on, and we can actually have a pretty in-depth conversation about something that seems so ridiculous. But I want to start with the most obvious for anyone who would be listening who might disagree with me. Hey, Will, Trump cussed. Like during the campaign, as he appeared on, I believe, Rogan or Theo Vaughn or whatever it may be, Trump cussed. And that's true. He did. I guess I feel like when Trump did it, and I can't remember the times that he did it, Bobby, off the top of my head. Like I can't remember the concrete examples, but I just know he did. I guess it didn't seem so gratuitous. This seems forced, gratuitous, and reductive, meaning they're making an argument that simply in the end rests on F Trump.
Yeah, it's a great point. So I think Trump did do this on Joe Rogan's show, but I mean, there's context there. Rogan's platform setting, it's more natural. But it goes back to when you're in high school, like you're a teenager, and some people start cussing just to cuss because they think it's cool, right? It's much different than like some guy at the bar in his 40s swearing during a football game. There's an authentic one and one just doing it to try to be cool. So yeah, I think there's a lot here. I mean, one of my takeaways is the Democratic firm Blueprint posted data after the election why swing voters rejected Kamala Harris. Number one was the economy, obviously, the border. Number two, fair. Third was a disconnect between ordinary Americans. And the Democratic Party, I think, has shifted so far leftward, or at least the prominent ones, that they've left the median voter behind. And they're really struggling now by trying to be normal, by trying to be authentic and trying to relate. And this just seems like another attempt to reach those ordinary Americans, but it's not working.
You know, again, I want to have integrity about this. You know, I had Dave Portnoy on the television version of the Will Cain Show last week, and he was like talking about the way Democrats behave during the joint session of Congress, and he was kind of talking about decorum. And I said, Dave, look, I don't think you're ever an authority on decorum, nor one that tries to maintain any sense of decorum. But Republicans have done things. Now, there's always scale and context, but Republicans haven't necessarily been have been the beacon of decorum when the other party is in power. You know, there have been incidences of not just Republicans interrupting a State of the Union from Joe Biden, but there have been instances of them also cursing like this. But I think this is less about them and more about Donald Trump. I feel like all of this is an attempt to rebut Donald Trump. What I think is happening is, like you said, Democrats have been punished for a lack of authenticity. So they look at Donald Trump and they say, what is it that makes him authentic? Well, one of the things that makes him authentic is he's clearly unfiltered. And that has at times also been someone who has cussed. By the way, do you say cuss, curse, swear? What do you say, Bob?
Swear, yeah. Uh-huh.
I say cuss. What do you guys in New York say?
To me is like
two-a-days.
Like a cat.
What do you say?
I say swear.
A cat?
Huh?
Swear?
Yeah, I don't really go cuss. Cuss,
Yeah,
cuss sounds a little older. Yeah.
A cat doesn't cuss, it hisses.
Doesn't? I hear cuss.
Meow.
No, a cat hisses.
No, it's swearing. They're swearing.
I don't say curse. It's too close to cuss, and there's that extra R, and it makes it a mouthful. So in a search for authenticity, as they wander the wilderness and they're totally lost, they think this is the way to accomplish it. And I'm sure they do cuss in their regular life. I'm sure they do. But like to do it from the podium and to do it as an argument, it is so inauthentic. And if it is authentic, it is so unflattering that I think it is a huge mistake. And I think here's an example, Bobby, of where this just totally continues to careen for Democrats. This is a Bernie Sanders rally, and this is a band which I'm unfamiliar with, but the lead singer is trans. And two-a-days, can you even play this? Because did you beep it out? How can we play this? I don't even know how you get away with this.
I did beep it out, if you're cool with it.
Okay, let's see if we can. Yeah,
just audio only.
Play it.
Audio only.
Audio only, beeped out. This is a song played at a rally for Bernie Sanders.
God have a big fat cause it feels like he's me. Or his filled with lightning. Do they tingle like heaven's keys? Does your God have a big fat cause it feels like he's me?
All right, I don't know if you can pick it up between the beat marks what he's saying, but he's talking about God's anatomy. And he's making he's painting sexual images of God. It's totally blasphemous. It's totally inappropriate. It's totally ridiculous. And the singer is Laura Jane Grace, a transgender singer from which band, two-a-days? Because
Against
I was
Me.
unfamiliar, but you and Patrick are fans.
Yeah, I'm actually a fan of
Against
Against Me. I have been for a long time, yeah. They're huge in the punk rock scene.
I never heard of them. Do you have anything by Against Me? Like, what would I know their biggest hit?
If she wants to dance and drink all night, well, there's no one.
This is their big one. Thrash Unreal.
She's going till the
Never heard it. Never heard it. But the larger takeaway, Bobby, is like, this is at a political rally. And don't forget, add to the language, just the message being sent by a very prominent Democrat.
Yeah, I think you and I've had this discussion before in the show. I don't think Democrats have ever been able to answer the question of how did Donald Trump get elected now twice? I think it keeps them up at night because they can't figure it out. And I think so many of their miscalculations are their inability to understand why this sort of vulgar outsider was able to relate to so many Americans, and they can't counter it because they don't understand it. And I mean, just so many things they do, you question, and it's like, well, that's what somebody confused does. That's what someone who doesn't understand how to defeat their opponent does, and it's just another example of that to me.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it's another example of them being totally lost. And if they think that if they think that their guide out of the wilderness is Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman from Texas, I'm afraid they're going to keep bumping into trees for another 4 years. All right, I wanted to finally play this last clip for you. This is from the Danish premier. I believe they call it their prime minister, who, of course, doesn't like Donald Trump right now because he wants Greenland. And she's talking about war in Ukraine. Let's listen.
My idea about Ukraine is the same as it has been now for 3 years, that they have to win this war. And if we allow Russia to win the war, I'm sorry to say it directly to all of you, he will continue and they will continue. And maybe we will even give them a better situation than today, because if we end this war now with some kind of a frozen conflict, a ceasefire, it will give Russia the possibility to return to Russia, to mobilize more funds, people, and maybe to attack another country in Europe.
All right, that clip, I believe, didn't have the operative phrase that she said in there, but she said basically that peace does not mean peace. Peace actually means more war. And she said, by reverse logic, war now is what means peace. This could have been a line from 1984. This is newspeak. This is war is peace, peace is war.
Yeah, I was going to say this is actually literally what George Orwell warned in 1984. We see a lot of bad analogies to that book often, but this is actually one. I think one of his main quotes is "War is peace, peace is war." Yeah, I mean, this is another story that just frustrates me. I've actually been doing a lot of research on Vladimir Putin. No, everybody, it's not because I like him or support him. I want to know more about him because we don't really hear any facts about him. We just hear everybody say, we hate him, he's evil, he wants to be Stalin, et cetera, et cetera. That's not very productive, and it does not make any of us smarter. But yeah, I think my takeaway from all of this stuff is, do people actually want to end this war? And I mean that somewhat jokingly, but every time I'm hearing someone oppose Donald Trump's plan for a peace deal with Putin to end the war, it just seems like these people don't want it to end because they can't fathom seizing any ground to Vladimir Putin. And what I think is interesting, Will, is if you look at his history, what he wants, what he's motivated on, I think more than anything, he wants the perception that the American president respects him. And like, I don't have all the answers. Maybe respecting him is not a good thing, but I do think it's the safest route. And I think that's the approach Donald Trump has been trying to take here is if we are cordial with him, civil, he is much less likely to act aggressively. And we've seen with Putin now, he does perform differently every time there's a new administration. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to get along with him, or at least until we end this war. I mean, Stacey Washington is a good friend of mine who's been on this show. I mean, she made the case, America's long can bully Russia, but in order to get to a point where we can bully them again, we have to get them to stop destroying Ukraine. So I just think overall people don't have the proper information here, and it's become of, well, we just don't want to side with Trump or Putin, so we're going to keep this war going. And that is such a damaging worldview to me.
You know, Bobby, we've had this conversation on both versions of the Will Cain Show, and I spend a lot of time talking about what it is that led to this conflict, looking at the history. And here's why I think that's important. To answer the question that you just said is, what does Vladimir Putin actually want? Because if we can begin to answer that question, we can begin to answer the question of how much should we invest as the United States in depriving him the outcome that he wants for Russia. And after all the research that I have done, all the conversations I've held, and all the podcasts I've consumed, and all the history that I've read, here's what I think Vladimir Putin wants. I think he wants a protective barrier between Eastern Europe and Russia. I think that the Soviet Union, in essence, was that. It treated all of those Eastern Bloc countries, Belarus, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Ukraine, as buffer zones into Mother Russia. Although they were under the banner of USSR, what they actually were buffer zones. And then, with puppet dictators under Putin after that, or not under Putin, but under Russia after that, to keep them within the sphere of influence of Russia. Now, here's why I think he wants that. Because history has suggested that Russia is vulnerable from Europe, that it has been invaded numerous times from the West. It has been invaded by Napoleon. It has been invaded by Hitler. When I tell you these historical facts, that's not a condemnation of Napoleon and a celebration of Tsarist Russia. When I tell you those facts, that's not a condemnation of Hitler and a celebration of the Soviet Union. It's just historical fact that they have been invaded from Europe, and they want a buffer zone, a sphere of influence. Okay, Will, what does that mean? Does that mean after Ukraine he's going to roll into wherever else he wants that buffer zone to be? The Baltics? I don't know. But I do think that he wants governments that are sympathetic to him and not the West. He doesn't want NATO, which was designed as a countermeasure to the Soviet Union and Russia, on his doorstep. He doesn't want to share a border. So those are his motivations, I believe. Then we have to ask ourselves how important it is for us to have the opposite, to have NATO at his doorstep, to have the Baltics and Ukraine as part of NATO. How important is it us to be there, sitting there with weapons on the border with Russia? How important is that to us? Because I think it's pretty important to him. And therefore, is it worth war for us to ensure we have weapons on his border? By the way, Bobby, we know the historical reverse of this, right? Russia, Soviet Union, wanted nukes in Cuba. They wanted nukes in Cuba. We decided over our dead bodies. And Russia decided not over our dead bodies. And they pulled the nukes out of Cuba. And if they did it today in Canada and Mexico, we would respond over our dead bodies. And they would probably respond, not over our dead bodies. So we decide if our dead bodies are worth having weapons on the doorstep of Russia.
Yeah, and there's 4 ways I think this can go. There is, we continue to keep funding this war and people keep on dying, and I think Russia will probably win eventually, but it's going to take forever. Very bad option. 2 is we stop getting involved and Putin takes over Ukraine. 3, we send American troops there and risk World War III. To me, that is the most devastating option. Or 4, we try to negotiate a peace deal. Now, maybe none of those 4 are perfect, Will, but isn't option 4 pretty objectively the best option for Americans and probably the world?
Yeah, I would think so.
It seems pretty clear to me.
On YouTube, the 13th Apostle says, Will, I can tell you are trying not to nod as much. Happy medium, LOL. Talking about me nodding on my television show. And Army Mom says, don't change your show. I don't watch a lot of other channels, but they all have some fun, except maybe CNN and MSNBC, because they are too busy complaining. The news needs some fun in the mix. Don't change. It's like a nice little bit of positive feedback here. Bobby is somebody I talk to a lot about the evolving nature of the Will Cain Show. All right, Bobby. Thank you, man.
I appreciate it, Will, as always.
All right, take care. Check him out at outkick.com. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's be the Warren Buffett of the NFL and free agency. Let's look at the value buys. Are they at receiver? Are they, once again, at running back? Next on the Will Cain Show. What are the value buys in the NFL? Free agency has kicked off, and we see guys changing teams. Big names available for your franchise. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Just hit subscribe at Apple or on Spotify. The biggest names so far in NFL free agency to either move or stay put but sign new deals. Josh Allen, re-ups with the Buffalo Bills. Chris Godwin, re-ups as a wide receiver with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. J.C. Horn, defensive back, re-ups with the Carolina Panthers. Myles Garrett, defensive end, re-ups with the Cleveland Browns. And DK, now for those that have changed hands, DK Metcalf traded and then signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Devontae Adams, wide receiver, signs with the Los Angeles Rams. Big names still available, by the way, out there, a ton. Shopping is just getting started in the NFL. The biggest, probably defensive tackle Milton Williams of the Philadelphia Eagles, or Josh Sweat, defensive end from the Philadelphia Eagles. There's Sam Darnold, quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, as well. So I believe we had this conversation last year. Throughout time, I've said I have become a proponent of the don't pay running backs philosophy, right? That running backs are commodities, they're replaceable, you don't have to spend a ton of money, and they usually lose the tread on their tires by age 25. That's about on average right now when a running back begins to go downhill. But what I think we're always reminded of is these are markets, and markets don't have really hard and fast rules. I don't think the best investors follow any Bible. I think the best investor of our lifetime is Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett has a sliding scale of value. Basically, where everybody else is overpaying, you look to go somewhere where everybody is underpaying. So what happened a year ago is the don't draft running backs, don't pay running backs philosophy, like any market, erred. It erred too far and left Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry available. And yeah, you had to pay them some, but like not obscenely. And both were awesome for their teams. And both were awesome for their teams after that age of 25. In Derrick Henry's case, he's in his 30s now, I believe, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say he's 31. He's a exception to the rule for sure.
Well, that's the point, though. All rules have exceptions, and so your only question is, what is your value? Like, if everybody wanted to pay Derrick Henry a ton of money at 31, and you're like, wow, this market's frothy, I don't think I want to be the fifth team in bidding on Derrick Henry, fine. But if everybody did what they did last year, the Cowboys could have got in on Derrick Henry. No thanks, they said, and left him to the Ravens, and the Ravens profited generously from that. Same thing with Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles. And so my point is, when we look at these markets, we want to create these hard and fast rules about running backs or receivers or whatever it may be, but it really only matters based upon what everyone else is doing and the individual involved. Is this stock here, this company, is it a truly solid company with good fundamentals making good money? Yes. That's only part A. Part B, well, what's its price? What is everybody saying about it? Does everybody see it and they're bidding it up? Well, then it's not worth your buy because you're not getting any value out of it, right? So you need to find that nexus. And right now, I don't know what that means for wide receiver. I think wide receiver is now the most fascinating market. Like, is DK Metcalf worth, what did it end up being? 5 years, $150 million? $30 million a year for DK Metcalf.
That sounds right.
It seems
when
like
you can get Devontae Adams.
It seems like the market really devalues wide receivers once they turn, according to this, anywhere between 30 to 32. And if Stephon Diggs is ranked like as the 50th best free agent, he's one of the best receivers.
And I think that's right.
You think so?
But I think it's
He's
right.
gonna tail off?
Yeah, I do. Well, Stephon Diggs has already tailed off, hasn't he?
Yeah, for sure. But their flashes are crazy. I mean, like Devontae Adams 3 years ago was one of the best receivers in the league. I mean, he was connecting with Aaron Rodgers, but just to look at him now and just the value drop so quickly and so fast is wild. And do you pay Derrick Henry?
So a guy like, but see, a guy like Devontae Adams, a guy like Devontae Adams, to me, there's explanations for his tail off. And I could be wrong though. Like, okay, he went to
bad quarterback.
The Raiders. He was actually, but he was pretty good with the Raiders, right? Like, Derek Carr threw him the ball for a while. Mm-hmm. And then he goes to the Jets, and I mean, Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, and
But do you
like? I'm not looking at his production going, "Oh, that guy's done." Put him in a new situation with Matthew Stafford. He's the new Cooper Kupp. You know, I like that. Like, by the way, I'd be pretty interested in drafting Davante Adams in fantasy football next year. Would you not? Like, not first, second, third round,
but as a bench player, that could maybe be good. Why not?
I would flag Davante Adams if we were doing a fantasy draft tomorrow, and I am the champion, so let's be real. This is how I win. Same thing. Value. I would flag him as a value buy. Like, I figured I would look at that and I would go, all you guys are going to think he's rotten now, like a piece of bad fruit. He's turned. And I'm like, I don't think so. If I can get that guy in the 5th or 6th round, I bet you could boom or bust on Davante Adams.
Could be, though.
I'm going to take him over you now.
He's a system wide receiver now.
Here's another one. Would you draft Cooper Kupp? And then by extension, would you sign him?
He's going to be a great.
You know, like should the Cowboys go after Cooper Kupp? And again, we're not talking about him being a number 1 receiver. We're talking about him being there with CeeDee Lamb. And for you in fantasy football, again, you're looking at like a 5th or 6th round deal, and everybody's decided Cooper Kupp is washed.
But look at what happened to Cooper Kupp when Puka Nacua came in, and he took over. You know, his production declined. He's still a great receiver. Behind CeeDee Lamb, absolutely not. I don't think you need it.
I think we know where Cooper Kupp is going.
The Patriots?
Yes, sir.
System wherever their white wide receiver goes.
He's a slot receiver. He's going to run 10-yard slant routes, and Drake May is going to find him. He finds the middle of the field spots.
Does the white slot receiver?
I didn't say that.
That day is over.
Didn't say that.
Yeah. Your Belichick Brady era is over.
Absolutely.
That's not you guys anymore.
It's a concussion.
Drake May.
It's a concussion trap.
Yeah.
Wes Welker.
People forget about him.
I loved Wes Welker. Julian Edelman. How many did you have in a row? Edelman, Welker,
Danny Amendola, Chris Hogan.
Oh, Chris Hogan. There's so many.
What people forget, though, is that Troy Brown and Deion Branch played the position the same way before those guys. They were slot, smaller guys.
Right.
But then they just happened to be really handsome lacrosse types.
What's up, Tinfoil? I do think that there is a market that's missing for edge and defensive end players. So like Joey Bosa's on the market. You know, we've already seen Myles Garrett and Max Crosby get massive deals. So now you can probably get Chase Young. Chase Young's also on the market. So there's a lot of guys with a lot of talent who might not be getting paid the same as some of those top market guys.
How did Chase Young and Jonathan Allen fall off so quickly?
Yeah. By the way, defensive line in general. So you have Zadarius Smith. So the Lions, Chase Young. Listen to this. You've got all these options, which, by the way, is good for Dallas. Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen. Who else we got here? Like you said, Bosa, Josh Sweat, Milton Williams. Ton of defensive line. Maybe value, but maybe they all get paid crazy numbers, and then it's not worth whatever you end up paying them. All right, try to be the Warren Buffett. That's the rule. Try to be the Warren Buffett of the NFL. All right, that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple. See you again next time.